precise at 7 o'clock. Here we are. This evening we have myself, First Selectwoman Tara Carr, Selectman Harry Shaker, and Selectman Steve Dunn present, along with our attorney, John Marini, and our controller, Marcia Marion. If we could all please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for coming. Do we have any public comment this evening? We're going to start with that. We also have public comment at the end on this agenda, just if anybody wants to hang around to the bitter end. I thought we'd have another opportunity there because it might be a long meeting. So, good evening, Nelson.
Hey, I'm Nelson Mallitz at 1 Great Herman Lane, also chairman of the Sewer Commission. We had a steep grant awarded from the state for last year to do the Brookfield Market area, and we have a contract that needs the first selectman's signature, and I thought it was going to be on the agenda tonight, but it's not. So anyway, we're hoping to get it signed.
It's on there. It's on the consent agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's Easter egg hunt to find it. Okay, and then I just wanted to give a thank you. I want to my friend Harry Shaker for all the years of service that he did, all those years. I know that if it's anything like my household, there were tears, and so thank you for doing that.
Hi, Andy Keem, 5 Fernbrook Drive. I'd just like to express my opposition to item 7D on the agenda, which is a tax abatement for a property at 731 Federal Road. If you actually look at the ordinance is to encourage development, and that property is pretty much fully developed and is about to be completed. Essentially, this way it's written, this is essentially corporate welfare. It reduces taxes for a wealthy developer's property in exchange for an easement for 36 parking spots. The cost to the town is not spelled out in the document. There's also other planning that's being, parking that's being planned for the Still River Greenway, and we have other places that we could obtain parking for free. I don't see any business case being made where it benefits the town for this. It's really not fair to the taxpayers or the other developers. Keep in mind, the development in the town center district has increased Brookfield's cost of services, and we really can't afford to give people tax abatements. It's not fair to the taxpayers in the town who have to share those costs, and I would urge you to not pursue this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again, Jessie Pineda, 12 Crestview Drive. I'm just here to say hello, part of the monthly meeting to kind of say, you know, what's going on with Center School. I haven't had any follow-ups or any updates as far as like how we're moving further along with turning that into a community center for our town. So that's my public comment. I hope to hear something soon from anybody. That would be great. You have my contact information. Like I said before, I'm here to help. So just let me know how I can help to move this along. We've been waiting for a long time.
You
Great.
can reach out to us at any time with email, phone call, with specific questions.
Okay. Well, that's my question, is what's going on. That's it. Just an update to see how we can move this along. All
I
right.
think we provided an update last month here as well. So
I didn't see anything on the minutes. I'll check
Be in
again.
touch.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for public comment. I'd like to make a motion to rearrange the presentations. There was a request from the chair of the Board of Ed to be moved to the top. He has another commitment this evening.
I'll second that.
And I'd also like to add Paul Zito, our radio upgrade consultant, to the presentation portion.
I'm sorry, say again, who?
Mr. Paul Zito, who's our radio communications upgrade consultant.
Okay.
So was that a second for that entire motion?
Is that one motion or two motions?
Well, it's to
Are they
rearrange the
talking to-
agenda, have Bob go first and add Mr. Zito. That's the motion.
Is Mr. Vito already on here, or are we adding him?
We're adding him.
So that's two different motions. You wanna move the Board
Okay,
of Ed?
two different motions. The first motion to have Bob come to the top of the presentations, the
I
second
seconded
motion.
that.
Any discussion on adding and moving Bob?
No, not for me.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the second motion to add Mr. Zito to the agenda for presentations.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi, Bob.
All right, this is on. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for adjusting the
No
agenda.
problem.
I do appreciate that. I'd like to just start by also offering my thanks and congratulations to Mr. Shaker for many years of service to the town. So thank you, Harry. The reason I'm here tonight is very brief. If you recall, we carry the contingency for certain items in the budget on the Board of Ed. We carry it on the town side of the budget. Last year, we got into a mode where I reported every month to the Board of Selectmen on where were we. This is very early for such reporting, so I'm not asking for anything tonight. I'm just kind of giving you an update of where we are. The chart that's up in the screen in front of you is the summary. I provided you some backup, but I'm not going to go through that this evening. It's more for your information, and we will be updating this every month as time goes on over the next months. And if you remember last year at this time, we were at like $800,000. We're in a much better position this year, and it only got better as the year went on because we would have some underruns in other areas. At this point in time, we're seeing exposures on special education transportation of about $270,000. You see that on the top of this table. It is driven largely by losing shared bus runs. If you remember last year, we entered into a sharing process with other towns, and we could split the cost of a bus. Many other towns are backing out of those because the behavior issues on the buses were difficult to manage. So we're continuing to work that and seeing if we can put a dent back in this, but at this point we're looking at an exposure of about $270,000. Second major item, we have special education tuition. That's almost entirely driven by students who've moved into the district versus students who've left the district, of about $73,000. And then teacher turnover savings, we actually haven't seen any savings this year because while we had a handful of retirements, most of the people who we had turnover on were low in the step level, and as you replace them, there were virtually no savings, and in fact, some of them went against us. So those are the three big drivers. All the others are working in our favor. If you kind of net them all out, there's some pluses and minuses, and you can see them on the chart, but the teacher salaries is due to spots that are vacant, for a period of time while we're waiting to fill them, and that's what will tend to get better as the year goes on. And that will actually offset quite a bit of the exposure that we had identified at the beginning of the year. So that's really all I wanted to share with you. I'll open it to any questions you might have.
The special ed students that are no longer with us, is that that they graduated through the program or just left?
It's a mix. Most of it was left the town.
Any feel for how this is gonna play? I know, I'm asking you to get a crystal ball here, but any feel for how you think this is gonna move throughout the year?
So special ed tends to stabilize by January, right? We'll have a really good handle on it because all the evaluations are going on right now. The teacher turnover savings will pretty much be final by November. We have one or two more spots we're still working on, getting a replacement teacher in. And then all the other line items will tend to work in our favor as the year goes on.
Okay.
So I'm hopeful that this will be less. The contingency the town carried was about $400,000, if I recall, and this would eat it all up. But I expect it will be less than that before we're done.
Great. Thank you,
We would
Bob.
have $400 left. We would have $400.
With this, it would be $400 left, right? So, and we don't want to eat up all the contingency on just these items as a town. And I wanted, by the way, I wanted to speak to you tonight because I will be off the Board of Ed at your next meeting and our next meeting. And I wanted to make sure that you had heard it from me once before a new chairman comes in and has to deliver news for the first time. It's fair that I bring the mail the first time, so.
And thank you for your service on the board as well.
Oh, thank you very much. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Bob. As always, educational.
Okay, any questions?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. We'll go with the EMS impact study.
Okay, good evening, members of the Select Board. My name is Charles Jennings. I'm the treasurer and principal for planning and public safety for Manitou Incorporated. I'm here tonight with John Cochran, he's been with the firm since its inception. And we were the firm selected for the fire and EMS study. I'll call your attention to the slides here. And so we can go ahead and advance on those. Thank you. Okay. So I won't read all this, but we're an experienced firm. We've been in business for 24 years. We've done projects in 22 states, 3 Canadian provinces. And I was a co-editor. John is a contributor to Managing Fire and Emergency Services, which is the International City County Management Association's book on fire EMS service delivery management. Both of John and I have extensive experience operationally and administratively in the fire and EMS delivery. So we can go on to that. So the previous slide. So we were made aware of a social media post with regard to the study that led to, or there was an implication there that the town may be influencing the study. And I wanted to make sure that we address that and be very clear that the report has not been released until the version that's going to be given to has been given to the select board. And so it's really inappropriate to characterize the position of the town with regard to anything in the report prior to their receiving it. And my firm takes our independence very seriously. And are really not subject to pressure from clients, and I think we made that very clear when we were interviewed, and nor have we been subject to any pressure. And so we just wanted to make sure that that was made clear, and that if there's a problem with the study, we wrote the study, there are recommendations, and the town is in the position of accepting, implementing those as they see fit, and we certainly stand ready to advise them as they go forward. So now on to the show. So the study's goal, and just for those of you, we were given 30 minutes, and so we will try to be very scrupulous about meeting that. And so basically, the underlying concern was looking at the growth in demand for fire and EMS service, and trying to get to the bottom of understanding why there's been a marked increase in calls for service over the last few years. And there was speculation at that time, all of it quite reasonable, that it could be due to changing local and regional demographics, increased development, and just changes from COVID, with potentially people working from home. And if you're here more to develop calls for service, et cetera. Next slide. Oh, yes, thank you. Boy, that looks just like the last one. Okay, so there was a competitive and open bidding process. And in February, we were awarded a contract with the town, and we were selected by a committee that was composed of the fire chiefs and other interested officials and town representation. So there was fairly extensive stakeholder participation. We spoke with members of the select board, key town staff, the fire marshal's office, police department, the fire chiefs, obviously, the fire company presidents and officers, fire and EMS personnel, and neighboring fire and EMS agencies. And that was spelled out in the request for proposals. We used a very broad and exhaustive set of data to develop our recommendations. which included company records, budgets, third-party reports such as the Insurance Services Office, which is a rating schedule for municipal fire protection, census and planning data, the town's own economic development reports, which were very good, the Assessor's Office data, National Fire Incident Reporting data, and police dispatch information. We also collected comparative data from comparable municipalities within Connecticut. We conducted a fire and EMS member survey, and we had a subcontractor, Mitchell Associates Architects, who came in and did a facilities condition inspection of all of the 3 fire EMS stations in the town. Our analysis also included extensive data analysis and use of geographic information systems. Okay, so on to the findings. As we kind of from a headline point of view, I think the problems that you have here, and really problems is maybe even too strong, but the concerns you have here are kind of the best concerns to have, in that your level of service that's being delivered now by the volunteers is good. Your volunteer system appears healthy. The trends are consistent in terms of member activity. We don't see a sharp drop-off in membership or any of those things that we would consider to be warning signs. There's been some changes organizationally with your EMS workforce. So the career EMTs and paramedics have now come under the control of the fire company for several reasons. And the 2 fire companies operate with the same procedures, which is very positive. One concern that we have, and certainly is a significant one from the town's perspective, with the fiscal impact that they have in terms of providing and funding for the service, is that there is no formal contract or agreement between the municipality and what are really private, nonprofit fire companies for the level, type, and delivery of fire and EMS services. And of course, we think this in a commonsensical way that, well, they've always done it, they'll always be there. But these are things over time, adding services, taking services away, could have significant fiscal implications, and it makes sense from everyone's perspective to have a framework or agreement in place to delineate those and spell out performance, reporting, and other responsibilities. Right now, the municipality does not have a strict, direct oversight of the level and type of fire and emergency services that are provided to the citizenry, and that's a statement, so we can keep going. Obviously, there's no single fire agency. You have 2 fire companies, one of which also oversees and delivers EMS, and there's no formal legislative structure for key elements of fire and EMS delivery within the town as well. I mentioned before the Insurance Services Office. The Insurance Services Office, if you're of my vintage, or maybe a little older even, they call them the fire underwriters 100 years ago. But these are third-party companies that provide a classification of each municipality's fire protection. Those classifications do get used in insurance underwriting purposes. It is not a direct relationship. Some companies don't use them. For commercial buildings it is, but the important thing is that in going through and looking at your current reporting, the town had a class 6, 1 is the best, 10 is no recognized fire protection. And it's our opinion that that rating of 6 could be improved on significantly. And the reason for that, it was primarily, this was before our arrival and the current administration in the fire company, but we don't know how that inspection was handled, but there was a lot of data that did not appear to be represented adequately in that report, which would be more favorable should you get a regrade. And they're done periodically, and in fact, you may want to ask for a regrade once you're ready in terms of having records together. Okay, in terms of demand for service, there was a very sharp increase in the numbers. And in the process of going through that, and we were very exhaustive in doing it, We did identify duplication of incidents, primarily EMS incidents that also receive a fire response were both getting counted as an incident, and so the total number of incidents was going up. There was also a considerable amount of missing or more likely incomplete data, or I should say inconsistent, where there was not agreement between various data sources in terms of numbers, times, and things like that. And so that was a challenge in terms of resolving all those. There is an increase in demand, but the increase is not as large as you would believe from the recent data. And so a large number of those changes were due to company policy, as we said before, double counting of incidents. But there is an increase in demand attributable to senior-oriented developments, and those are primarily EMS incidents. And we do in the report look at utilization of EMS by age demographic, and not surprisingly, you know, as you get older, 65 and over, and I'm not picking on anybody 65 and over, but the utilization of EMS is a multiple of what it is for the rest of the population. And so that's something that's important in terms of the longer term, looking at the impact on demand. Next slide. So we did a population forecast, which was tricky because the state's population showed, I think it showed the town losing population. We don't think that's accurate. We do expect it to increase, and we were informed, I think last week, that there was a new projection out. Obviously too late to be incorporated into the report, but we you know, would think it's reasonable to think that the town could reach 20,000 people by 2035. The growth in incidents in that period is going to be almost entirely attributable to EMS. Fire incidents will increase more modestly in the other fire, which is not structure fires, but everything else. You know, service calls, steam mistaken for smoke, you know, natural gas odors, all those kinds of things, which are legitimate emergencies, but you're not, you know, not burning down buildings, which is good. From the member survey, and there's a lot of detail in this on the report, but you know, there's indications of very healthy volunteer system. There are management challenges, which are not uncommon in volunteer, you know, fire companies, but the members remained very positive about their service and the prospects for continued volunteer service provision. In the area of EMS, a little less so, but of course, you already have a significant reliance on career staff to provide EMS, and that's probably a reflection of that. Next slide, please. And so this is just kind of one key exhibit from this, and we ask members, you know, at the end of the survey, in 10 years, you know, my local community's volunteer participation will be strong. The green bar is agree, the blue is disagree, and some more probing questions there. The important takeaway from this is that people are very optimistic about the future of the volunteer service. We do not see this in every community that we go to, okay? And so that's a very positive, and I think a real sign that's I think the town can take some comfort in. Next slide. So from all these findings, we have a number of recommendations, and the first would be to enact a local ordinance that would formally establish responsibility for delivery of fire and EMS service within the town. And this obviously, these would have to be done collaboratively with the fire companies and the town. We also think there should be a specific service agreement that would spell out what services are being provided by the companies, the level and type of service, what reporting would be coming up. So there would be periodic reporting coming in on, you know, things like response times, number of members attending calls, training hours, things like that. Performance benchmarks for services, and funding and budgetary submittal procedures and information sharing. We know some of that already exists, but talking to both sides, there's probably room for more and deeper engagement there. In that regard, we recommend creation of a fire and EMS commission. And, you know, very quickly people say why and what will they do. We think there is a benefit of having a focused and consistent citizen body that's looking at fire EMS service delivery, because right now The companies kind of fend for themselves to some degree when it comes to the budget process, and it's kind of a one-off. They come up to the town and say, we need this, and it's, you know, and then it's like, well, we don't understand, and what about this, and all those other things. So this would, in our eyes, provide important continuity, develop some depth of knowledge and understanding, and really serve as a valuable articulation point between the town, the public, and the fire companies in terms of understanding service delivery and being able to make informed choices about potential increases, changes, whatever, as time goes forward. And that Fire and EMS Commission would develop a single budget proposal that would go to the Board of Finance. And ideally, that would have been, you know, vetted and hopefully a consensus, or close to a consensus document at that point. And we want to make clear that this would be a purely administrative role. There is not an operational role for the Fire and EMS Commission. And so this really, as we see it, does not impinge at all on the operational, in any way on the operations of the fire companies. And we have some additional information in the report on that going forward. As we said before, we think that when the fire companies are prepared, you should ask for an early regrade from the ISO. We think that you'll see considerable improvement. There were specific issues. One was the additional ambulance, which I know remains a little contentious. We felt that there was not sufficient demand to justify purchase of a fourth ambulance. However, in discussions with the chief, Chief Ellis, you know, they floated the idea of retaining the fourth ambulance when they get a new one in, and we don't have any issue with having a reserve ambulance. And in incidents where you do have an unusual demand, you do have that potential to use it. But we did not think it was appropriate to go out and buy a new one. Fire company employees, the current arrangement where the town is responsible for the EMS employees should continue, and the town should remain kind of arm's length at that. There are some areas for outreach in terms of dealing with overuse of the EMS system, and we're talking here about really institutional and major properties. We're not talking about going into any individual person, but looking at things like policies for staffing on off hours that may result in excess utilization of emergency medical services. In terms of the system overall, absolutely, the emphasis should be on retaining the current fire and EMS service and the volunteer system. In our estimation, it's working well now, and with some additional supports and additional oversight, we think that you know, there's no real reason that that would be challenged. The stipend program, we think, provides a good value given the service that's being provided and the rules that are in place. The current annual stipend has not been increased in some time. Obviously, everybody's aware of inflation, gas prices, things like that, and there are real costs for, you know, participating, getting up and driving to the fire station, and so that should be you know, updated on some periodic basis in consultation with the fire companies, and we think that's money well spent. And then basically tighten up reporting, and I think the fire companies are aware of this in the course of doing the study, but there were areas in the current ISO report where the data was just simply not there. In most cases, I think the fire companies have it, but it wasn't provided. In some cases, it needs to be you know, collected and made sure that it's available, but that's an issue there. Right-sizing the fleet. We think that there can be some contraction of the fleet, probably one engine, maybe a little more, but the issue here is that the insurance industry has guidelines on required equipment. However, those guidelines are designed solely for structural fire protection, and so they do not consider EMS, they don't consider hazardous materials, rescue, all the other services that are provided. And so, you know, there is some opportunity down the line, but we don't see a wholesale need to change that mix at the moment. In terms of facilities, you've got more on your plate there in the longer term. You know, you have the three facilities, Candlewood, Center Station and the newest, the Brookfield Company Station. There are deficiencies with regard to code in some of those facilities. The Candlewood Station in particular is hemmed in on a very kind of inhospitable site. And if you've been up there, and you'll see in the report, I mean, it's as close as I've ever seen in terms of squeezing a truck into a garage. So that's going to be an issue down the line. We do lay out in the study the potential for, we would say, rationalizing station locations. But of course, you know, as I tell people very quickly, you know, great news, you know, you can invest, you know, millions and millions in new facilities for not a huge necessary benefit in terms of the services that are going to be provided. So that's a long-term issue that the town is going to have to deal with. The Fire Marshal's office was reviewed as part of our scope. They're involved. They continue to be involved in plan review and approval. We recommend that the town fire marshal assume oversight and of fire incident reporting, which is consistent with the duties of fire marshal and a lot of other similar municipalities. And they would be the liaison to the state fire marshal's office for those. Related to that are some information technology issues, which we think the fire marshal would be a reasonable person as a representative of the town who could work with the fire companies. We believe that they should move toward basically getting a common IT platform and software between the two companies so that they are basically, the data exchange is seamless, and there's probably some cost efficiencies in doing that as well. And some of that effort is ongoing. There's a lot of discussion between the companies about this, and that they have a vendor in place that they're working with towards some of this. We suggest the fire and EMS incident reporting should be made consistent, and the main fire company moved in May 2023 to unify the fire and EMS incident counts on a single platform, which should eliminate the problems they had with duplicate incident reporting. So that should be a big help. With water supply, worked with Aquarian for a long-range plan for expansion of the system. The water system is a fundamental component of the ISO grading. What percentage is, John? 40%. Yes, 40%. So that's really important. It can't be overlooked. Hydrant inspections. In terms of there's a service agreement right now between the town and Aquarian Water, and we think that service agreement should enunciate specific requirements with regard to fire hydrant dependability and use, including annual testing. And then on emergency communications right now, the police dispatches fire and EMS. Because of the fact they have 2 people on duty and a comparatively large number of units checking on the air or going on the air, all those timestamps for each unit that leaves the firehouse when they get on scene, those are not all necessarily captured. And so we believe that basically you should purchase a platform with technology, either a tablet or some other computer technology that would essentially allow the operator or the officer in each truck to push a button, and that would automatically register that information in the computer-aided dispatch system. And that will allow you to get much more granular data on response times. For example, how long did it take? We know when the first unit gets there, but we don't have good timestamps or reliable timestamps for second, third, etc. So in closing thoughts, the big takeaways: fire services are being delivered effectively. The fire companies have done a lot with regard to coordination, but they need to do more. There's a lot of detail in the report and additional background and recommendations. Some of them are kind of small potatoes. These are really the big ones that we're going through tonight. As services increase in complexity and cost, and unfortunately in this business, nothing seems to get simpler. You know, we get more regulatory impacts, more requirements, more mandates. That is going to create a stronger need for a more formal structure and a relationship between the town and the fire companies. The volunteer system is strong and can continue with positive support and leadership, and all the changes and recommendations we make in the report are intended to be collaborative, recognizing the tremendous service that the volunteers are providing, the high quality of service provided by the career EMS employees as well. And so we don't want anything in the report to imply that they're not doing a great job. And we think everybody can come together, shore some things up, and keep the system moving forward in a constructive way for the foreseeable future. So that concludes our presentation, and we'll be happy to entertain any questions. And John Cochran is here to support me on that.
I'd like to first say thank you, Charles, and thank you, John. It seems like a lifetime ago that we interviewed, and now here we are receiving the final report. And this has been so thorough. Your firm has been very professional, and you've stuck with us the whole way through and provided such a great executive summary tonight. But the final report, I think, is 276 pages or something, and you're right,
It's a little longer. It's a little longer than most, but yes.
So yeah, I mean, this is great for the town of Brookfield, for the fire companies. There's a lot of really valuable information, and if it's me moving forward, I look forward to kind of getting after all this stuff together. Like you said earlier, maybe some of it is more for reference or for the future, but I think there's some work to be done for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So.
As we move forward, and obviously we're going to be sitting down and actually sitting down with all the firemen and the EMS and going through this. This report is really voluminous and there's a lot of detail in there. Will you be a support function for us as we go through that process? Is that included in your contract or no?
The short answer is no, but the actual answer is
But
we always.
an additional
Well, no, I wasn't going to go there. We do provide, within reason, we're happy to be a sounding board, and clients call us up sometimes 2 years, 3 years after we've done a report.
If we have a question,
and
okay,
we'll
you
do
stated
that.
this,
Yeah.
we're not quite sure what you meant by it, you will be there for us?
Yeah,
Because I
absolutely.
think what you've
We
done-
service after the sale, especially on a complex document, but we are happy to, if necessary,
Yeah,
to come in and for.
there's gonna be a lot of
anything.
stuff to go through here, right?
Well, there's a lot here, yeah. I
We-
mean, there's
we
some big
And I'm
stuff.
especially
Very thorough.
appreciative of the appendices where you've provided what other towns across Connecticut in particular are doing, so we can look at that analysis as well. That's really valuable.
Especially how much they spend on volunteer fire.
We're not doing that.
Thank you very
You
much.
know?
I just want to say thank you. I knew in our time together, in my session, I could tell when I walked out that we were in good hands, and it would be thorough, and it would be complete. And it was funny because about halfway through, I was trying to figure out how in the world can you possibly put all this together. But thank you very much for your work, and it's very much appreciated.
Okay, well,
I do have one question
Oh, okay.
about the ISO, because you touched
Yeah.
on that quite a bit. So we're at a 6, 1 is the best, and I think in the report, we're supposed to fall somewhere between like a 3 and a 5, and I know that inspection's coming up again soon, right?
We haven't had one since 2015, I believe.
so you're coming up, yeah.
Yeah, and the fire company wasn't asked to participate in it, the fire marshal's office just did it. So
Okay.
it wasn't really a complete thorough report, as I was talking to John about it, and I believe moving forward down the road, we should be good.
We need to coordinate more closely with the fire marshal and the fire
It'll
companies.
be a team effort, absolutely.
Okay. Because this affects everybody's
Correct.
insurance rates, everybody, yeah.
I guess my question is it had the ISO inspection for this term happened this summer, and we were able to kind of move the needle there, would this report have looked very different, or no?
In that part of in that section of the report, sure. Let me clarify something. There is no absolute when it comes to where you should be on a scale of 1 to 10. Typically, a town of this size, it's not uncommon for a town this size, I should say, to be around in the range of a class 3, 4, or perhaps 5. As the chief was saying, the last time that ISO was here, and they try to come in every 5 years. That's the goal. They're not always able to do that, and there's certainly been backlog because of COVID in recent years. But when they come in and do their survey, it's not a mandatory thing, and they do the best job they can in gathering records. data, reports, and doing an actual on-site field assessment of the fire department, the water system, emergency communications, and the fire marshal's office. From that collectively, that's how you get your rating. But we really can't speak on behalf of ISO. Only ISO can do that. We can refer you to what their guidelines are, and we have offered to the chief as a follow-up to this night's presentation, offer them some guidance on how to best prepare so that for both volunteer fire companies, so they're in the best position whenever ISO comes in the next time. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, they've already made contact
Correct.
earlier this year, this summer.
At your recommendation, we held them off.
Right.
So we can get
Yeah.
everything that they recommended.
And we recommend that until you're in the best position. Now, there's a kind of a balancing act, because ISO will allow for that, but not open-ended for a long time. They give you some reasonable time frame before they come in if you ask them to hold off.
I'm thinking probably the spring.
Okay.
We'll give it time to get the fire marshal office squared away with new staff, our stuff, enact some things that they recommended, and we'll go from, like I said, we weren't involved in the last one, and that really hurt us. Collectively, I think our score, right, training wasn't even part of it.
Training was, but in the fire department side, in the fire department's 50% of your grading. Okay, so often there's a misunderstanding. ISO's grading is not a fire department grading; it's a community grading. Right. They're measuring your fire defense system, as we mentioned in the report. So they're looking at fire at 50% of it. Water system and water service is 40%. 10%'s emergency communication, and there's another 5.5 for fire prevention related things, code enforcement, fire investigation, arson investigation, those kinds of things. And within the fire department, 9 of the points of 50 points is on training. How well the fire department trains, what kind of training they do. And remember, they're not here to assess the fire department and it's all of its services. It's strictly structural fire protection, because they serve the property insurance industry. So that's where that comes into play. You only earned, it was less than 3 out of 9 points for training. And we know by our knowledge of the fire companies and their operation, we know that you're well prepared for earn much more than that. And we weren't here, none of us was here at the time, so we assumed that there was a lack of records that were presented, perhaps, for the field rep of ISO to make an assessment, a thorough assessment.
And John worked for ISO in the past, just in case you were wondering.
Yeah, I appreciate your expertise. This is really informative, and it sounds like we're going to be able to get after a lot of this. And good.
Yep.
Again,
Thank you.
appreciate all on behalf of the residents of Brookfield that you've been able to contribute.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was great. Moving along on the agenda then, we have Mr. Paul Zito, who is our radio communication system upgrade consultant.
You moved me to the head of the line, thank you. Tara asked me to come here tonight to just give some pointers as to where we are on the radio project. Things have been pretty quiet for a while we gather all the necessary items to do a build-out. The equipment has been ordered from Motorola. We anticipate the console equipment being ready to be installed before the sites around town, the RF sites. And I don't think it's any too soon to get those consoles in the police department, because I think, is the chief here?
Yes.
You had another failure last week? Okay, a couple days ago. So we're going to work on getting those consoles in first. The furniture for the police department needs to be ordered for the dispatch center. That's in process. That hasn't been submitted yet for approval. And then the sites, the high school, we have some electrical work to do there and install a cage in the room where the RF equipment will go. That's pretty cut and dry. WRKI, the radio station site, same thing, except we're going to change antennas out that are already existing on their tower. There is no real backup power up there now, so we're putting battery backup in so that if power is lost up there, we can make sure we still have communications. They do have a generator up there, but at times that's trying. Fire department main headquarters, we call it fire department main headquarters. It's really the tower in the back that coincidentally was built by Ray, but he has turned it over to American Tower, so we need to do a contract with American Tower to put equipment on that tower. That will get started probably the middle of next week or so. The Vale Road site, I think Ray can talk about that. We are waiting for a notice to proceed on that site. All the drawings are in. What we call construction drawings have been submitted. We're just waiting for some contractual things to be worked out. And I can't stress enough that you've done this at a good time. You couldn't have waited any longer. Fire department is giving the police department radios to sustain portable radios within the fleet. So we're trying to get those out first. If we can get a dozen or so portable radios when they get delivered from Motorola, we'll pass them out or give them to the police department to pass out. Typically, we wait till the end to do subscriber units, but you can't wait any longer.
What's our timeline to completion?
Within 10 to 12 calendar months.
That long?
Yeah, it was 18 when we started.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that we can't speed things up, but that's typically what we're looking at. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, Harry.
No, I'm
Steve?
thank you.
No.
No. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the update. And the final item under presentations is Mr. Rigatti from Homeland Towers. Thanks.
Good evening, First Selectwoman Carr, Selectman Dunn, Selectman Shaker. Just for the record, I'm Ray Rigatti. I'm the Regional Manager at Homeland Towers. Some of you folks are familiar with who I am. As Mr. Zito explained, I was the one that did the tower here at the town campus a few years back. We recently did a tower on 60 Vale Road next to Golf Quest. It's a brand new shiny tower that was put up right off Route 7 to serve that southern area of Brookfield. I'm here tonight just to continue the dialogue with the town. We have interest from a carrier for the northern section of Brookfield. I put together a proposal to the Board of Selectmen since the town owns property there, roughly 7 or 8 properties. We've zeroed in on 2 of the properties of interest to the carrier that we're working with and is interest to us as a developer. And as a developer, as I mentioned before, we simply build the infrastructure for the carriers, the Verizons, the AT&Ts, the T-Mobiles, and Dish is a new carrier coming in. I have visited one of the parcels, which is 62 Long Meadow Hill Road, which is the vacant parcel across from the high school. That's roughly an 18.5 acre vacant parcel. Used to house the septic fields for the town. I've been there with my A&E. It's a vacant parcel. We've picked out 2 options right now where we think a tower would be appropriate. I'm waiting for final feedback from the carrier so I can provide a tower profile or tower height on a draft site plan for the town's consideration. I also want to address tonight as well, I did mention in my proposal that the high school property, which is 45 Long Meadow Hill Road, is roughly 62, 63 acres in size. And I don't mind providing that as another option to the town. It may make sense. I'm willing to spend the money to do a site visit there. I didn't want to go, obviously, this day and age on school property, and just show up and do a site visit without speaking to the town and getting the okay first, if it's through a facilities manager or through Public Works or through the Board of Selectmen, obviously. But I think it would make sense just to provide a site plan for a site at the high school property. And what I'm thinking, when you come in the drive to the right-hand side, the south side, behind the maintenance sheds, behind the tennis courts, back in that area. Just an option.
Up on the hill, or?
We would look, there's slopes and grades to get up to the top of that hill. The hill has wonderful elevation, but I don't necessarily need to be on the very top. The elevation right now at the maintenance shed is about 430 feet, AMSL, ground elevation. The site across the street, the vacant parcel, we've looked at 2 locations, and each one is slightly different. One is about 420 in elevation, the other one's about 445. So they're all kind of apples to apples, and each option has its pros and cons when I look at a site. A site at the high school has very far setbacks from homes. I'm getting a little closer to the historical hamlet, something I'm always aware of. But I thought it would just make sense to present options to the town. And look, at the end of the day, if the town says, Ray, we're going to take a pass, that's fine, as I've mentioned to the board. As part of my job as a regional real estate director, before I take a site to zoning, I have to look at a number of properties. I like to work with the municipalities first if the property is appropriate for siting of a tower. And if the town takes a pass, obviously we'll work with private landlords. I do have interest already in this area. I was surprised the amount of interest that I have. But I want to give the town first crack. And again, no promises tonight. No, we're going to sign a lease tomorrow. It's just to continue this dialogue and present a draft site plan. If this is something the town wishes to receive the revenue benefit from, we would present a draft lease like I did when Selectman Dunn was first selectman for the tower here, work with the town attorney and drafting and negotiating a lease. And the site does kind of tie into, at least the proposal to lease space in the north section of town, does tie into the Vale Road site that was recently stacked on September 6th. We've had a communication license agreement before the town for a few months. And I think, we're willing to work with the town on some rental terms if the town is willing to lease space to us in the north section. So there's some negotiation we can certainly work on. Again, no promises tonight. I just wanted to come here and appreciate First Selectwoman Carr giving me the opportunity to speak and continue the dialogue. But just, that's where we are right now. I'm happy to still answer questions that any board members have.
You mentioned.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned that something to the effect of if the property is suitable for siting, is that determined by the siting council themselves?
Sure.
Who weighs in on that?
So when and I've been doing this for coming up on 25 years, when I site a tower in a community, I look at it as if I live there. So I put my little zoning hat on, and I like sites that have the least visual impact to a community. I like sites that have the least environmental impact to a community, meaning I don't want to be traversing across wetlands. The parcel across from the high school has Hot Brook that cuts through the 18-acre parcel right through the middle. I would keep away from any wetlands. But yes, the siting council, which is a state agency out of New Britain, they have 100% jurisdiction of approving towers, brand new towers in the state of Connecticut.
They're not an elected body, though, is that correct?
They are appointed by the governor.
Yeah.
They are appointed by the governor. Yes, they're not elected. They've been around since the late 90s. They oversee wind, solar, electric transmission, and cell towers.
So if we opt out of site 1 or 2 here,
Correct.
it's going in that vicinity.
It's
whether we
going.
want it in
It's
Brookfield
the
or
same
not.
scenario could effectively would play out, which, on Vale Road, I had worked with the town on Grays Bridge Road, the Pub Works. It didn't go through for whatever reason, there were some challenges on that property. It was tight. There were some wetlands there. The town took a pass. I went to private property behind Golf Quest, and that's where the tower has now been erected. Yes, the need does not go away. If the town takes a pass on the town properties in the north section of town, it will go on a private property. It will definitely go on a private property.
And there's no restriction on private property, except for you want to stay from wetlands and stuff.
I still have the same hoops I jump through
Yeah.
on private property or municipal property when I go before siting council.
Yeah.
The benefit putting it on town property, quite honestly, is you folks receive the revenue, but you have wonderful properties up there as far as setbacks, and size of the parcels. So you have that going for you. You have an opportunity to control the site in the sense that, you know, I heard some presentations tonight on public safety, and Paul just mentioned the high school. If something were to go up on town property, not only would you receive the revenue benefit and control it in some sense, the aesthetics, but you would have free use of the tower as our landlord, just like you have free use of the tower here at Town Hall.
But if you, let's say the town took a pass and
Sure.
you went to a private property owner, you could get permission from the siting council to put it there, meeting all their requirements. and due
absolutely.
diligence.
Absolutely.
But the neighbors don't get to say no.
The neighbors do. There's still a
There
public
is a
hearing.
process they can complain, but they can't say no.
The siting council could deny a site based on environmental impact. They cannot deny it on health and safety. And
That's
that's their
right.
opening, yes, that's their opening statement. This site cannot be denied on health and safety. It can be denied if there's a better property that has less of a visual impact. It can be denied if there's another property where I'm not disturbing wetlands. It could be denied if there's a view from a historical district and a property that's not viewed from historic. So they take into all these considerations. There's still the same process if I'm on private or municipal property. I still go through the siting council.
I guess my point would be, if we decided to put it on a town property, 62 or 45.
Correct.
It would be less intrusive for any of our residents, from what I can tell right now. Because we have the most property.
I have some private landlords up there, and I don't disclose names, obviously,
no,
because
no,
it's a private matter, but there's some landlords that we've looked at, we've walked the properties already, we've spoken to the carrier about the interest, it works, and they're well wooded and they are set back, and they would work. I think doing this for 25 years, I can kind of like look at a property and know pretty quickly, like, that's gonna work or no, it's not gonna work.
Right.
I've had about 5 or 6 homeowners that responded with interest. I would say 2 out of the 6
Might work.
might work
Okay.
visually.
Yeah.
They would all work,
All
but
work,
I think, you know,
visually.
yeah.
Because you try to reduce the impact both visually and aesthetically as
Absolutely.
much as you can. Rick,
Absolutely.
Right?
That's number one. That's my number one goal.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't make everybody happy, but I try to do the best we can as a developer.
I understand you're really solely responsible for the structure itself. What does the future of that tower look like? What will be hung on that tower?
So I guess I'm dating myself. When I started doing this back in the late 90s, there were 6 carriers in the market. There was Singular, AT&T, Sprint, Nextel, T-Mobile, and Verizon. That has shrunk down to 4. So to answer your question, we make the tower available for all the carriers. The carriers nowadays are Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Dish Wireless, Dish Network. Those are 4 active carriers. We also make it available for public safety. So it would be very similar to what you have here on the Town Hall campus. That's a 150-foot tower. I say similar. I don't pick the height, but I'm saying similar as far as design. You see antennas hanging off of it. You see different levels of antennas. This particular tower behind us has 2 levels, meaning there's 2 carriers on top of that tower. My understanding with Mr. Zito that the town is getting ready to put public safety equipment on that tower, which usually entails whip antennas, like a cylinder 2 inches in diameter, 15, 20 feet long.
That's not cellular. So what is the technology that we could anticipate on Long Meadow Hill?
It would be cell for,
5, 6, 7?
so, you know,
Small
the
cell,
5G
what?
just stands for 5th generation. It's just delivering data quicker to the end user, and I'm sure the engineers are working on 6G, and I'm sure they're talking about 7G. The name of the game is to get the appetite, satisfy the appetite for the end user. Is it going to driverless cars in the future? Who knows where it's going to go? But the end game is to make these sites available for first responders. Everybody has a phone, which I call a computer these days, in their back hip. And it's become critical infrastructure. So the carriers place their equipment on these towers, and first responders rely on it. And not only do first responders rely on just their radio network to have their whip antennas, but a lot of times these first responders rely on a Verizon network or an AT&T FirstNet network because there's certain information they cannot put over a radio system. They prefer to have it on a cell phone. And we just don't have reliable cell coverage in any given area. It's a public safety issue.
So just touching back on the contract for the Vale Road location.
Sure.
what would that arrangement look like if you were to be?
So that arrangement right now, the lease is before the town. The town would have the rights to have a footprint within the compound. It's 10 by 16, 160 square feet for your cabinets as well as a generator backup for your communication system. I believe the town has proposed 2 whip antennas for that tower, each being 23 feet long, one coming off the very top of the tower. That particular tower is 165 feet in height. And the second antenna would be at a location of, I think it's roughly 85 or 90 feet on the bottom portion of the tower.
I was talking about more of the financial arrangement.
Sure.
If you were successful in putting a tower on Long Meadow.
So we've put the communication license before the town with the monthly rent of $3,000 for the Vale Road site. What I've told you folks in my communications is that if you don't want to lease property up here at the Homeland Towers, which is fine, it's your prerogative, you have a lease for Vale Road, it's $3,000 a month, which is less than what carriers pay us, and you're taking up a full spec of a footprint of what a carrier takes. But if the town is willing to lease to us, and let's just say hypothetically it's the vacant parcel across from the high school, we would be willing as a developer to take that $3,000 a month rent and reduce it by $2,000, so it would be $1,000 a month to go on the Vale Road site. You'd still have your full spec. In addition to reducing it by $2,000, we would offer the town $2,000 or 25% of the gross rents that we collect on a tower up by the high school. So financially, it's a win-win for the town. It's a wonderful revenue opportunity, and you get to control the tower. And by the way, if it's on town property up by the high school, and if the town ever wants to put equipment on that tower, well, you'll have language in your lease, just like you have here on the firehouse site, that there's free use, no charge by Homeland Towers for the top of the tower. So if you want to look at it as a $5,000 swing in a sense, you know, you're going to be getting monies from a ground rent in the north section. We're reducing the rental, obviously, on the Vale Road site by $2,000. So it's a financial windfall for the town. And again, if the town wants to entertain us, we're more than happy to work with the town. We've been down this path before. We have, I think, a good relationship that we've proven with the town. I'm going on my 3rd tower. We're a local company. We have a wonderful, you know, the Siting Council views Homeland Towers as a company that is reliable, brings good sites before them, and they know what we know what we're doing.
Does the Siting Council refer to the FCC guidelines, and have those been updated, or when can we expect that to happen?
Yeah, I don't know if they've been updated or not. The Siting Council, they've been around since the 90s, and as I mentioned, they oversee these sites. They won't deny a site on health and safety, and that's because of the 1996 Telecom Act, the FCC Telecom Act of 96, that a site can't be denied on health and safety, no matter what people may feel or say. The Siting Council likes to follow the town's wireless ordinance if they have them on the books, only in the sense that you have 169 towns in Connecticut. The town of Brookfield may have a wireless code on their books that say they want towers to be, you know, 100 feet from a property boundary. They're not bound to that. The Siting Council will look at it and take input from the town, but they're not bound to follow any of the wireless regs. They look at every site on its own merits with their own glasses on at that application.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have any other questions.
No.
Sorry, I've drilled you tonight, Ray.
Oh, no. So like I said, you know, if the next appropriate step would be, because I'd like to present 3 options to the town. I'd like to at least do an A and a B option on the vacant parcel. And I would like to investigate the area behind the maintenance shed, possibly Tara up on the hill up there. I don't know if we can get up there because of the steep slopes. And I shy away from going up steep slopes because I get into certain issues where I have to pave. And I'm cognizant of that because I have wetlands down below, and when I pave, I create, you know, impermeable surfaces. So I'm not saying it can't be done, but I would like to at least arrange a site visit, put the town on notice, yes, I'm going to be showing up on this day, if it's through facilities manager or public works or whoever, and at least take a look at it, and then give you folks a site plan to say, these are the 3 options I'm looking at. and the town can make a decision.
Yeah, I
from
think
there.
that would be up to the Board of Ed to allow you to do a site visit.
Mhm.
Although the town does own the property.
Town owns the
they
property.
control it.
Yes.
So I think you would make application to John Baril,
Okay.
the superintendent. I don't think he'd have a problem with you just,
It's,
but no one is allowed with the new changes.
oh
You
yeah,
have to
I
have
don't step
permission.
foot on school property. I don't step,
You don't want to step
this
on.
day and age, yeah, very careful.
Great.
So yeah, so that's fine. I'll be happy to reach out to the Board of Ed superintendent. And if he puts me in touch with the facilities manager, I'll arrange a visit at least. And then I'll be able to come back the next Board of Selectmen meeting, and present a draft site plan. And this is something the town wants to entertain. The next appropriate step would be to give it a ground lease to the town attorney
Right.
and start the review on that. And again, if the town wants to take a pass on this, that's completely understandable and it's fine. I'll just work on private property, and we can still go forward on the Vale Road site, which you folks are
Yeah.
getting ready to install on. And just as a quick final update on the Vale Road, I was out there this morning with Eversource. They've had a heck of a time getting transformers these days because of the supply chain. So it looks like they're not going to be doing a pad transformer. They're going to kind of do a little MacGyver and give us a pole-mounted transformer on a pedestal. And it'll be a temporary fix, per se, to get power to the site. And then when these 345 kV transformers become available, we'll have to swap one in. Yeah. So we're getting there. I think we'll have power to the site right around the end of December.
Great. Super.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
But not with the town's equipment on it yet.
Not with the town's equipment on it yet. I've been working with Eric Fine, who's with Norcom, your consultant, on the NTP, the notice to proceed requirements. And one of the items is obviously a signed lease. Before we can allow the town to touch the tower, we have to have a lease in place. So not that there's urgency to make a decision on the ground lease here. You know, we can work with you folks and figure out what's going to be best. But, you know, I'll work with you. I'll work with you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Take care. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our announcements. This is not listed here, but I did want to take a moment to just say thank you, Harry. You have been a pleasure to work with, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. You've been an amazing resident to the town of Brookfield and a stellar, outstanding representative on all the boards that you've served on, and I admire you for that.
Thank you.
As far as the coffee with the community, I would like to make a motion to cancel our November meeting. That's my motion.
I'll second that for now.
Any discussion?
Not for me.
All in favor of canceling the November coffee with the community?
Aye.
Aye.
It's right at Thanksgiving. It's,
It would have had to been
Difficult.
on the 18th or the
Yeah,
26th
I wouldn't be able,
or
I'll be
something.
out.
And we've had no quorum lately, so. Okay. Again, I keep putting this out there, the sign up for the Spotlight newsletter, the Everbridge emergency notification system, and of course, the Facebook page, because we now have an emergency management director. All these things are vitally important for people to just stay in touch and in tune in case of an emergency. We have our vacancies, 2 on the Arts Commission, an alternate on the Conservation Commission, 1 on the Economic Development Board, 2 for Energy Advisory, 1 for Housing Authority, which I hope to appoint tonight, 1 regular and 2 alternates on Inland Wetlands, 1 for the Planning Commission, sadly, and 1 alternate for WPCA, 2 alternates and 1 non-voting youth member for the Youth Commission. Our correspondence is attached under item 5B. Over to Marcia.
You received reports, both the expenditure report through October 31st, that we generally do transfers quarterly unless there's an emergency. If you remember last month's meeting, you tabled the inter-fund transfers pending a special meeting to discuss the legal fees. That's not happened. So the ones that are shown there are still the same transfers as last month. That with respect to revenue, you've got the budget to actual through September 30th. It's only the 5th, so the statements haven't come in for the interest on the revenue side. We have been earning, the most significant change is we have been earning a lot of interest And we've talked about it before. We don't want to count on that interest yet because there are special rules for arbitrage. We've got tax exempt bonds. We can't earn too much interest on them. If we have to spend the money within 24 months, and that 24 months is coming up this month. When we took the bonds out, we took out 18 months of cash flow, but then the project was delayed for a full year. The school was supposed to open September of 22, and it opened September of 23. That delay is causing us to hold on to these tax-exempt bonds and longer than we thought. We want to calculate how much, if anything, we would owe on a rebate on that interest, that we would owe it back to the IRS
For the arbitrage.
on the arbitrage. And we can't calculate that until we know the final cash flow and we know how much it's going to be under under budget. So, but that's fine. We just want to be very careful and not say, oh, we've got all this interest, let's spend it. Let's wait and see. We do have 5 years from when the bonds come out to make that calculation, but I'd love to do it as soon as possible just so we can know how much of that interest income is ours and how much is not. That's the biggest variance in the revenue so far.
Yeah. Okay.
Any questions on that?
No, I don't have any.
When do the transfers have to be made for the interdepartment on the legal?
Well, we want to make them before we go over budget, so sooner, as soon as possible.
We're
would
not
be
there
great.
yet, though.
Right now, we had $1,500 left in the tax, I'm sorry,
Labor?
the legal for lawsuits. I think we just are getting a refund from Kerma this week, so that'll be a little bit more, but I mean, we only have like 5,000 left. And with respect to blight, we know it's going to go over with the 2 cases that are out there, and I just don't know how fast it'll go over. So I would say we want to do that as soon as possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Was your fastest brief yet, Marcia? Okay. Our first new item, the Police Outside Services Fund request. The police have requested to appropriate $220,000 to purchase a mobile operations vehicle to enhance their ability to support incidents and operations that Chief outlined in his memo from the 4th of October. And the Police Commission already approved this request on the 4th of October. So I'll make the motion that we approve, the Selectmen approve the request and forward it to the Board of Finance for the appropriation of $220,000 from the Police Department Outside Services Fund for the purchase of their mobile operations vehicle.
I would second that, but I would ask that John, just for our residents, this is a lot of money, if John could come up and give us a description of what they're doing, why they need it, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Good evening. This is a replacement vehicle.
Right.
This is not something that we're just adding to the fleet. It's replacing the 2005 Ford truck that we had purchased in 2012 used. That vehicle owes us nothing. A few years ago, the board approved the outside services request for the portable garage that we put up in order to house that, to get some more life out of the vehicle. But at this time, the vehicle repairs are starting to outweigh the benefits of the vehicle. Due to the exposures, elements, and damage over time, the vehicle is on its last leg. The air conditioners don't work, the rodent damage, the fiberglass body is progressively getting worse. So we're asking to replace the vehicle
and the replacement vehicle, majority of that cost, the vehicle itself is $53,000, or $54,000, excuse me, and the upfitting of the vehicle with all of the equipment is $151,000. So we're requesting $220 out of the outside services, which I believe in the last report from finance, which we get like quarterly, I believe, for the amount in there, and there is enough money in the outside services. So it was brought forward to the police commission, and they approved it.
I'm sorry, could you clarify, this is a used vehicle?
No.
No, okay. I was gonna say for $220,000. I know trucks have gone up, but.
This is
Okay.
a new vehicle.
No, I think, I agree with that. I agree with
The
that.
previous vehicle was used.
Yeah, the previous one was used. Okay.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I'm fine with this.
Did somebody second the motion? Or did
I
you not?
seconded with John, giving us a quick overview.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No.
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item 7 alpha, our employee job descriptions have been out on the table for quite some time. I think we tabled them from last month. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the job descriptions as presented on the 2nd of October Board of Selectmen meeting.
I'll second it. I don't have any.
If you all had a chance to review them.
It was hard to review them because they weren't redlined, but they seemed pretty straightforward and acceptable.
Any further
It didn't seem
discussion?
that there were a lot of changes in them. They were just updates to meet existing changes in the law, which you could see. It's easier if you have it redlined. You say, okay, you're changing this to this, but I'm good with it.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 7 Bravo, the steep grant for the town hall upgrades. I don't have any handouts in the packet on this, but we did have, if you guys remember this
Right.
This is,
packet from August.
we're calling that a town hall upgrade? I like
That's
that.
part of the town
Yeah.
hall campus master plan, Steve.
Yeah, okay.
So that's how we applied for it when the Board of Selectmen approved the request for the application. And it was actually approved the Friday before our last Board of Selectmen meeting, so it's been about a month since we've touched back on the topic, but
Yep.
when this initially came up, remember the whole where to put it, we had looked at
Yeah.
Williams because they have an existing tennis space.
Yeah. Yeah,
Anyway, we had identified at the time the $100,000 match, which has since been transferred back into capital non-recurring, so we would now need to approve taking that out of capital non-recurring
Yep.
and setting a date for a town meeting.
Yeah, I'd make that motion, that we appropriate $100,000 from CNR fund balance not to exceed $100,000, and to approve the scheduling of special town meeting on November 28, 2023, for the approval of the entire expenditure of $589,000, of which $489,000 will be reimbursed by a steep grant.
I'll second it.
And ask that the Board of Finance.
Oh, and to forward to the Board of Finance for their consideration and possible approval.
Any discussion on the motion?
No, it's a good,
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Thank you. So as an update, just for informational purposes only, item 7 Charlie is the WPCA contract with Danbury, and I'm happy to report they were able to negotiate the reconstitution of the capacity.
Yeah, I had a question on that. I was reading it, and it looks like this is an agreement with the town of Brookfield, because it's addressed to you. But isn't the agreement with the WPCA?
We went over this ad nauseum. Yes, I had the same concern. And it was delineated that the signature can come from the WPCA based on.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but this reads like it's an agreement with the town, and the town is making a commitment here to spend money, when the agreement should be with the WPCA.
That was my
Right.
first question back to them.
Because this is addressed to you, at town of Brookfield.
Yep.
And it says the town shall pay this. The town It all refers to the town. It doesn't refer to the WPCA at all.
There are other documents that were addressed to the town as well that the town did not apply signature from past practice, so.
It's the WPCA that executed the documents on their behalf. However, the address initially, I agree,
It's a
probably
little
should have been
confusing, right?
directed directly to the WPCA, but in terms of the legal commitment, it's clearly the WPCA
Okay,
that's executed.
just wanted to
So
clarify
we're-
that.
we're good. But yeah, in the future.
I saw Nelson's signature here, but it says Town of Brookfield.
Yeah, in the future, we could perhaps,
Clarify
if such a
this.
thing happens, say, hey, that's properly directed really in the first instance to the chairman of the WPCA. But again, as the first selectwoman had mentioned, the actual execution of documents very much clarifies that it's the WPCA.
Okay, so in your opinion, the town is not on the
The
hook?
WPCA, yes.
All
So
right.
it's not subject to the full faith and credit of the town, it's subject just to the revenue stream of the WPCA?
Exactly, it's to that entity of the town, which in a lot of ways is an autonomous, semi-autonomous entity. I mean, it's always interesting to talk about things like the WPCA and the Board of Education as well, because in certain senses, they are considered part of the town. They're not entirely autonomous, but in other senses, especially when they're making monetary commitments, when they're making budgetary commitments, they are considered autonomous. And this is one of those cases where the legal agreement is, resides with the WPCA and not with the town.
So it'll say that it's not our full faith and
Not
credit,
ours,
it's just the
WPCA.
WPCA, so if they don't pay,
We do
it's-
not have to.
we
no,
do
we're
not have
on
to.
the line.
That was my concern, because it looks like Nelson's signing on behalf of the town.
He only has authority to sign on his own behalf.
Then why is he signing a document sent to the town? Document is clearly sent to the town, right?
Yeah, it was mailed over to the town, but he's the responsible entity within the town. The WPCA is, that he signs.
I'm still concerned. This is addressed to the town, First Selectman Tara Carr, dear First Selectman Carr, and the agreement only references the town. It does not reference the WPCA, although it is signed by Nelson Malwitz. Nelson Malwitz is not authorized to sign on behalf of
Only
the
the
town.
WPCA.
Yeah, so shouldn't this agreement be with the WPCA?
It is.
It's stamped here for the town of Brookfield acting by its Water Pollution Control Authority.
Yeah, it could
Okay.
only apply to the WPCA.
Okay.
And we could, I mean,
You see my point here?
Well, I
It is
understand
not
with the
clear
address.
and delineated who is the responsible party. And 6 years from now, somebody comes back and says, hey, you owe us, you're the town.
the town never executed it.
Okay. All right.
You can just send me the document where it says that it's not subject to the full faith and credit of the town, where it's just subject to the revenue stream of the WPCA, if you would send me that, because I couldn't find it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Now, the interlocal agreement is forthcoming, and that's something that will have to be executed by the town, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Are we good with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to item 7D, the 731 Federal Road Tax Abatement Agreement. We first received this in April of 2020, well, I'm sorry, the town received it in February of 2020, and then it
Yeah.
flash forwarded to April of 2023, and then we had it on last month and tabled it again. So here we are.
Can I speak to it? I'm Paul Scalzo, 32 Torrey Lane, and a partner in 731 Federal Road. I just want to say a couple things. I mean, I can understand why the gentleman behind me thinks it's corporate greed and so forth, but it's really all about the grocery store that we brought in. And I'll go back 3 or 4 years when I found out there was a tax abatement to Paul Galero up the street. And I just want to say that the grocery store has been a push. It hasn't been somebody that's actually sought out Brookfield and wanted to come here. It was a client of ours upstate. And when I brought him here and made several concessions to get him in, the town was great and in good faith made an offer to do a tax abatement for him. In the process, though, we had to get parking spaces. We went through wetlands, only got 16 where we needed 36 in the agreement. We did go back to ZBA and get more spaces, and in additions, we got an approval for another building. But I just want to say, when it comes to the grocery store, because it's been such a push for me, this is all about good faith to the grocery store. It's not about the developer receiving any of this. If you recall, for Selectman Tara, we came to see you when we had the sewer moratorium, and they were worried about perishables, and they were afraid that we weren't going to have pro-growth in Danbury, in Brookfield Center there. So there's been a lot of things that come up, but I just want to talk about good faith. Our expectation is that you'll have good faith in approving it. And I just want to say a couple things the developer did. One is the town asked us to put in the streetscape at 37 Old Route 7, Oral Hill Road, that we didn't have to do, but we went ahead and did it on good faith. And I think just recently, if you haven't received the check, we just sent in a check for about $100,000 to start the streetscape, because we think it needs to move up. It improves our building. But the grocery store is not in lease yet. It's conditional upon this approval. So I'm hoping that you see fit to approve it, because people want the grocery store. It's the #1 call we get. We have yet to get his engineering, and I'm constantly moving him along. If this gets approved, then he's conditionally in lease.
Yep.
I just thought you should know that.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're here, Paul,
Yeah.
because I'm sure you're familiar with the ordinance, the town ordinance on the
Yeah.
tax pay, and it's very procedural, right? So I'm trying to adhere to what the town needs to do to entertain the request. And the only thing that we've received from you is this draft agreement that you guys signed in September, and I received it on the 12th of October.
No, there was a new agreement that I signed, and it's
On the
dated,
September.
this is the one that Attorney Cook sent over. I believe it went to your,
15th of September.
yes, that's it.
Anyway, I think there's
Yes,
some
that's it.
errors in here.
Okay.
And going back to your point about the last tax abatement that the town gave to Mr. Galero's property, that was packaged as an application. Like, it was very thorough and comprehensive. It was in a binder. Everything was tabbed out. It presented a very good business case as to what the actual request was, and it was more than like just this draft
Okay.
memorandum. So I need to see something in order, because the ordinance calls for me having a joint meeting with the chair of the Board of Finance, the chair of the
Okay.
EDC, the building department, the tax assessor, and in order to this is all I have to kind of speak to, right?
I apologize then.
I'm happy to show you what the town
Yeah,
has
or
from the
if you
past.
can direct us to the attorney that did Paul Galero's, we'd be glad to
I don't know how that works.
put something procedurally in place.
I know in the past, we've had discussions with Paul and his team on this project years ago. The agreement was in principle at that point in time, and Harry, correct me if I'm wrong, that you would provide us with 36 parking spaces dedicated to municipal parking, right? You would maintain them, you would pay taxes on them, you would line them, you would snow plow them. For all effects and consequences, they're your spaces, but you dedicate them for people who want to walk on the greenway, or who want to go somewhere else in the town, or to the grocery store, to your shops. That was the agreement in principle. And we had numerous discussions. I think the Board of Finance was aware of it. EDC, I think, was aware of it. We had conversations with everyone on that. We had a commitment there. So we looked at it, and we said, well, if the town is going to buy, we need more municipal parking. I think everybody agrees with that. If you go over by the cafe at 11 o'clock in the morning, there's no parking spaces. So we need more municipal parking. If we had to buy a piece of property, pave it, line it, take care of it, take it off the tax rolls, it would cost more than the tax incentive we're giving you here. This seems to me to be a very good deal for both town and for you. And we have an agreement that we had, in principle, agreed to.
Yes.
Correct?
Well,
Harry,
there are
correct?
some emails that say you
Well-
would expect the board to approve the request, but then it died on the vine, and it's been
Yeah,
3+
because
years
COVID
since-
came and
COVID
they
came, and that's
stopped.
what slowed us
But
up.
there was still
So there
2
was
years
no
after
final
COVID to adjust.
resolution of the agreement, no final resolution, but the agreement was agreed to. And Harry was a part of that. We
Yeah,
all
and
discussed
I
it.
think that on the application that I believe came with this, or that did come to the selectmen's office, there was more information as far as the number of parking places. I believe that says 36.
Those-
36.
Can I speak to
I
it?
haven't seen that application. This is the folder from Ginny's files. This is all there was, and,
No.
I mean, again.
Well,
I think-
procedurally, if I didn't do it correct, I totally understand. But really, this, to me, I understand what you're saying. This is about a grocery store to the developer, being us. But whatever I need to do procedure, I'll bring back to you.
So I was able to take a look at this, and I do agree that maybe conceptually, right, there is a little cause for concern, because in concept, the tax incentive program is to incentivize development. And of course, in this case, the development is already there, right? So I looked very closely, as I'm familiar with this particular style of incentive all over the state. And I looked very carefully in trying to come to a decision as to, okay, well, could it be applied in a sense retroactively? But I did spell it out in writing. Because an application was certainly made in good faith before the development, I think that we are required, the town is required to in good faith, take a look at it, to consider it. So I think it does come to the board. If there was no application made in the first instance, I would say no. I would say, wow, you know, the purpose of this
done.
ordinance is to incentivize development, not to reward it after the fact. But I don't think that's where we are.
And I don't mean to be,
I agree.
Oh, no, not at all, and I don't think it's
Well-
not laying fault either.
No,
I
no,
think
no.
though the way to handle it at this point is to simply make sure all the steps are followed from this point forward. So I would say, in terms of the application, basically the fullest application should be put together to give
Okay.
to the first selectwoman. Then she'll consult with, as prescribed in the ordinance, those, the chairman of those boards. And then she would make a recommendation to the full Board of Selectmen. And then finally, the Board of Selectmen would be able to consider it and also consider a possible agreement based on it. And that would put us back on the track we would need to be on. But I think the real saving grace here, of course, is that an application was made. And the way the language reads, and I tried to be as fair as possible, the language reads shall. When the selectman receives it, they shall make a recommendation, they shall pass it on, and of course I know that was not done. So I think in fairness to the applicant, it needs to be done, even if it does come at this late stage, you know, in trying to even-handedly interpret the ordinance. But,
Okay.
yeah, I do understand that kind of pause, and hey, isn't the horse kind of out
No.
of the barn? But I think in fairness with that application, that the board does need to consider
okay,
that.
I'm sorry, Attorney,
Marini.
yeah, we'll follow the procedure, obviously.
So we're asking Paul to go back,
Yep,
recreate the application process, come to us, and then we'll go through.
okay.
I'm gonna say publicly, I am in favor of this. This is something that we all agreed on back then. Harry?
Absolutely, yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I'm hoping in good faith, you know, as we've done, I think, as a developer, that you all do that as well. But
Okay.
Thank you, Attorney.
And then,
Well, how long would it
and
take to
Tara.
get this over?
yeah,
Well, I'm gonna get with an attorney and redraw everything.
I'll send you the ordinance.
Oh, that'd be great. That would help.
Very
for-
clear
Yeah.
on how we're supposed to
good.
present it.
All right.
Makes sense.
Thank
So
you
is
for your
it-
time.
So is this something, if he gets this to us, is this something that we can do it in a special meeting?
yeah. we
So
could.
that
Well,
this
it has to go
administration,
through the process. I've already reached out to the boards, the chairs, and, I don't know.
Well, let's let Paul put together his information. If you can do that as quickly as possible, we'll get the ordinance, send it to us, we'll look at it, and then you can, I'm sure that, given the time constraint that you have, and that's what special meetings are for, we have a time constraint, you have an agreement in place that needs to be signed with one of your tenants that could go away if we don't have this in place. Is that correct? And everybody wants that tenant to be there.
Well, we would have never asked for the incentive if it wasn't for the grocery store.
Yeah.
It would never, I mean,
Right.
was the push.
Okay.
And keep in mind, you know, interest rates have gone up, construction costs have gone up. Every step of the way, we've had to
Yeah.
go back and renegotiate with them.
Yeah.
So,
My-
but thank you. I understand what I need to do,
my,
and I'll
my,
get on it right away.
my point is that this originated under Steve's administration, which I was
Correct.
part of.
Correct.
The legwork now has been with this administration. I think that this administration here, if at all possible, should be the one making the decision on this.
Well-
And that's why I would like to, if it's possible,
Yeah.
to get this done, get it done in a special meeting.
I agree with you.
We wouldn't
under
have
this
grocery store if
administration.
it wasn't for you, Rick.
Okay.
The fact that we're doing what we're doing. But I just want to see if we can, at this point, I'm almost tired. If you don't, you know, because it's been such a negotiation. But if we can bring this to a conclusion, it'd be great.
That'd be great. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
For a second, Tara, could you have somebody email to me tomorrow
Yes.
morning? Or
Sure.
Attorney Maria,
I'll do that
and
tonight.
take care of it.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, and similarly, I'd like to make a motion to add the Phase 7 of streetscape the lots of grant to the update part of the agenda. I had it on and took it off, but it needs to be discussed.
I'll second that. Do we have paperwork on that or no?
There is nothing here.
Okay. Okay.
So I'll just quickly, you seconded?
Yeah.
Any discussion on adding it to the agenda?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the developer of 731 Federal Road sent in a memorandum of agreement for us to sign, and we did that with a letter of support as well, to have them pay $109,000 of the engineering design for what we're now calling Phase 7, which is parking on the street in front of the grocery store. He just mentioned that he sent a check, but I need to know if that's a fact or not, because that might affect the way we make the motion.
I think we can trust Paul if he says he's sending us a check.
Because it was
he's gonna
supposed to
send it.
be, according to the
Have you
agreement, it was.
received the check yet?
I don't know. I don't, I haven't heard about it, so I would assume we haven't, because they would ask me where to post it.
Yeah.
I don't personally go through each of the deposits, but when there's a check for 100,000, they will ask where to post it.
The reason this is important is because the agreement spells out that it was supposed to be a reimbursement.
Right.
So,
We can prove it on a contingent basis, contingent on the reimbursement.
okay,
Yeah.
that works.
The contingency makes clear that intention.
So the project solicitation application deadline is the 13th, and the fear is that if we don't move this forward to the Board of Finance and schedule the town meeting before then, we'll miss the date for this lots up opportunity for this whole thing.
Right.
So we've already set the date for the steep grant for the town hall upgrade on the 28th. I'd like to see this project go to that town meeting as well. Overall, it's a $1.7 million streetscape
Yeah.
project, but we need to have an approval of the appropriation not to exceed $109,000 for these design engineering costs, which will be reimbursed according to the agreement, and forward that to the Board of Finance for their approval of the same, all contingent on the 100% reimbursement of that engineering design cost, and then submit the project to the solicitation for the COG lots it by November 13th, and schedule the town meeting for November 28th.
You're saying the 109,000 will be reimbursed by whom? The way you read that.
Mr. Scalzo and his
They're
partner.
they're
No, no.
issuing.
Oh, so we're approving Phase 7 at $1.7 million with a design cost of $109,000, which has been agreed to be covered by Paul Scalzo's company in the amount of $109,000 of the 1.7 million. Is that your motion?
Yes,
Okay.
and set the meeting for the.
And set a
28th.
meeting for the 28th. I'm fine with that. I will second that motion.
Any further discussion on Lot Sip Streetscape Phase 7?
No.
No.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, consent agenda. There's one change on the new hires. The Kelly Glover was premature. Yeah, it's contingent on her background check being finalized.
Oh, okay. That's contingent? Okay. But you want to go ahead and vote it?
Yes,
Yeah.
well,
Or note it, actually. You note
we
it.
can take it off and add it for next
Oh,
month.
okay, that's true.
Can we just approve it? Or, I mean, it's whatever you want, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let's
so-
wait, because if
Okay.
she ends up not coming for some reason, then we'd have to undo that, I guess. Any questions on items A?
No.
No. B, I'm fine. C, I'm fine. D, I'm fine.
So I'll make the motion that the Board of Selectmen approve items A through E on the consent agenda.
With the exception of removing Kelly Grover.
Yes.
I'll
I'll
second.
second
Oh,
that.
that's,
Any discussion?
no.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And our final item for this evening is the appointment to the Housing Authority. of Jennifer Delaney, a Republican, as a member to the Housing Authority for a term beginning tonight, the 6th of November 2023, through the, Cynthia?
Sorry.
Why is that blank? Do you have the list of the vacancies?
I think it's a 4-year term, though.
I could run up and grab it.
Do you want me to get it?
Yeah.
While we're waiting, do we want to do public comment?
That'd be great. Make a motion to go to public comment.
So, second.
Hi, I'm Team by Fernbrook Drive. Again, on the agreement to fix increased tax assessment for 731 Federal Road. Nowhere in this document does it tell what it's actually costing the taxpayers in Brookfield. This is essentially an agreement between those two folks to do something, okay? But where is the cost to the taxpayers in Brookfield? It's nice to say that parking spots will cost more or less, we can build them cheaper. But again, I think before it goes any further, the citizens of Brookfield and the Board of Finance need to know how much tax are we giving up here and for how long? Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
There's a couple of things maybe on the WPCA issue that were sort of like half-truths or something, or.
Who are you, sir?
Well, my name's Nelson Malowitz, Sir Don. That is, we've signed this agreement, we executed this agreement with Danbury. Back in 2014, I circulated it where the Board of Selectmen had given authority to the WPCA to represent Brookfield on the, on matters dealing with interlocal agreement. So based on that, we executed, and then my counterpart that signed it was not the mayor of Danbury, it was another public.
The head of their WPCA, right?
Yeah, basically, so, and, it was only a letter of agreement, it wasn't the agreement, but, then, okay, so the WPCA will cover the revenue stream by paying off a bond, for which we'll probably need the good faith and credit of the town to get the bond,
Yep.
but not to make the payments. Bond payments are the darling of the bond industry, I mean, sure payment, because they always get paid, and, so it ends up being, now, in addition.
Not if you go to California.
Well, or maybe Detroit, but Detroit, they defended it, you know, and they ended up not
Yeah.
allowing them to do anything with it. Well, California is, that's the left coast. Anyway, so we'll need to come to the town, probably, unless Danbury decides they're willing to loan us the money, and then we're just doing a loan agreement with Danbury. And so they have that before them as an option. But so basically we planned it out. We understand that what it's going to take to make it happen. Right now we already charge a $20 per unit. Well, actually it's $40 per year per unit plant charge assessment for this rainy day that's coming. And in the 20 years, if we have a 20-year bond, that number will probably stay about the same in order to cover the cost. So it's already sort of a way to make that happen. Now we just have to work on wrestle together how to use that capacity. We have this certain capacity. It's like a asset to the town that, or you know, a pot of gold that's going to run out as soon as we use up all our capacity. Then we'll have to put the throttle back on again, or we could begin anticipate and put a throttle back on now. So we'd have to work with the land use people in order to decide how to spend that capacity that we have between now and 580,000 gallons do we consider how we spend it, or do we just first come, first serve and let the chips fall where they may? So we have to wrestle with that issue.
Thank you.
Nelson.
So, Nelson, you're thinking it is subject to the full faith and credit of the town?
Oh, not to pay, well, we're gonna have to go out for a bond. Like every other sewer bond will pay, the WPCA pays it directly. Sometimes we just send you the money, we send it right to the bank or whoever owns the bond or whatever it is. So anyway, and any sewer bond so far in the history of Brookfield, we've relied on the full faith and credit of the town in order to get the bond at a favorable rate.
Right.
I don't know if the WPCA can actually float a bond.
So my only concern would be when would we have to go to the people, because it'd be over $1 million that, to get that approved.
Just over $1 million, got to go to referendum.
Yeah, so you could do referendum A
Right.
or whenever you can only do referendums, have a vote. You don't open a poll up.
We'll get you guys to pay for the referendum too.
And with respect to the asset, we're gonna look at service concession arrangements as a GASB that may apply to allow that to be an asset.
Well, that might work.
Question on
Okay.
that.
Yeah, now you're out of my league. The other thing is that, we do have a project going on at the Brookfield Market Craft Center area, for which we could borrow money. I don't know if there's any extra borrowings from the school project that might be able to be applied to that, so.
So we would still, we could move the bond money, so we would still have to go through all the same approval process that,
It's not gonna be $1 million.
But not go to the street, use any
and
savings we have to pay for this. Then
Correct.
when we go out to borrow, we finally clear it up. That way we do not want to go out and do short-term borrowing
No, yeah, I understand.
at all. Yeah,
yes.
okay.
So we would still have to go through the approval process that we would normally would. It's just on the back end that we wouldn't have to go out for bonds. We would
Right.
say, oh, if there's savings from the school, we'll just transfer that from one project to the other.
Order of magnitude
Right.
of that.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the order of magnitude of school bond savings?
You agree, John?
They're not promising anything at this time other than being under budget.
Yeah. Comfortably under budget is the last I got. Okay. Thank you, Nelson.
Okay.
Any further public comment?
Last, I can just have a minute of your time.
Sure.
The Brookfield First Responders fundraiser to help Officer Greg Waldmiller, badge number 353, in his fight against cancer. We're asking the public to come out and support Greg and his family on November 18th, 2 to 9 p.m. at Marketplace Tavern, 189 Federal Road. We'll be doing a tip-a-cop and a touch-a-truck event to help raise money for Greg. So come put your first responders to work as they serve you and enjoy your great food. We'll be selling t-shirts and stuff to help him with his fight.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, John.
Great stuff. Anyone else for public comment? No? Okay. Motion back to the appointment of Jennifer Delaney. And second on the
Yes.
moving back? Thank you. All in favor?
Well, we didn't get the date.
No, we
I
just,
have to move back, so
I'm sorry?
I made a motion to move back to that item.
Yeah, I know. We need, the reason
And
we
then I'm
held it up.
gonna-
Okay, you're gonna make the motion again?
So we're all in favor of moving back to the appointment?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, good. So the motion will be through February 1st, 2027, which is a 4-year term, as recommended by the BRTC.
Okay.
A second?
Yes.
Any discussion on that appointment?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
God bless you, Harry.